What can we expect from Paul George this season? Is there a chance that he could be a better fit than Jaylen Brown?
Rain and J's, how we started raising business, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. Peace.
Hey there, welcome back to the show. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Join all the action now at FanDuel.com to play daily dingers. Make your free pick on who's hitting a homer this MLB season. I'm John Karalis. Welcome back to the show. It's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday show, and on this Friday, we're talking about Paul George because he recently appeared on a Beneath the Banners video. Celtics released their behind-the-scenes thing, and he's in Boston. He's got the number 13. He swapped the number 13 with Ron Harper Jr., and now he's here ready to play. So what can we expect from him this season? Is he a better fit actually than Jaylen Brown? That's some of the stuff that people are talking about. We'll get to that in the third segment. Some of the words that he had said coming up in the second segment. But what can we expect? And we'll do that with a guy we can expect to drop knowledge on this show. Tom Westerholm, everybody.
What up?
How you feeling, Tom?
Good, man. How are you?
This is so embarrassing that we both wore the exact same thing that we were on the last podcast.
We're disgusting,
we're just
gross people.
Been wearing this for 3 days.
3 days.
Looking the exact same.
Yeah.
But, oh well. Anyway, let's just get to it. Might as well just power through. What can we expect from Paul George? Paul George, who played 37 games last year for the Philadelphia 76ers. But when he came back after a suspension, 25 of the games that he missed were suspension related. When he came back, all of a sudden it was like, wow, knockdown shooter. Wow, this guy looks actually pretty good. Having 25 games to kind of chill in the middle of the season can help somebody out a lot. So it's going to be very interesting to see what he does for the Celtics this upcoming season, how they treat him. What are your expectations for Paul George this season?
Yeah, over the course of the summer, I've progressively gotten more and more like, man, this guy's like, he's still good. Like, he's still quite good. And I have to keep reminding myself that Paul George is only very slightly younger than me, right? So, I would be in so much pain if I played in an NBA basketball game. So, look, Paul George is 37, right? He'll be 36 right now. He'll be 36.
He turns 36.
Turn 37
in May.
Turn 37 in May. Yeah.
He'll turn 37 in May. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah. So, he's an elder statesman for sure. Right. That said, I think obviously you look at the games played the last 2 seasons. It's not super encouraging. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that I absolutely important to remember that last year it was not injury related, and that could benefit him this year a little bit. But I think when people talk about the fit, I mean, I really do think that there's a lot to be said for the knockdown shooting aspect of it, right? Because I think, the Celtics, what they have is a lot of guys who can shoot, and now they have a lot of guys who can really be relied upon to make spot up shots. And I think that really matters. And they also have a lot of guys. Paul George can also, like, your Derrick Whites, like, your Tatum, if somebody else is running the play, like your Payton Pritchards. These are all guys who can both shoot and drive the ball if the guy's a closeout guy. He fits perfectly into that mold in a way. I think Jaylen Brown is a far superior player, right? Like, there's no question about that. But I do think that you can't really rely on Jaylen as a spot-up shooter to the extent that you're going to be able to rely on Paul George. I think that Paul George is going to give the Celtics a really, really reliable knockdown option on kickouts. And so much of the offense is based on the drive, the kick, and then people being scared of that guy making shots, and then, the ball swinging or that guy just being open. I think there's a lot of reason to be really optimistic about what Paul George can do. And then I keep having to remind myself that he is going to be 37 if things go well for the Celtics toward the end of their year, right? Like, he's old, but
yes,
I still think he's good. I'm still encouraged about him. The more I think about it.
So there's no chance he plays back-to-backs. So they have 16 back-to-backs. So you take 16 out of the 82 and you're down to what's that? 66. So the most he's going to play, right?
Yeah.
Right. I'm proud of myself for doing that easy math. I'm proud of myself for getting that right with a hesitation on the spot. That's where my math brain is. So the absolute most he's going to play for the Celtics is 66 games. And you go back over time, and he has played. The last time he played 74 for the Clippers in 23-24. And then there isn't another one back until you go back to like 2019. So 66 is still a little bit on the high side.
Yeah.
You're going to take out, as I've joked with many people, if he gets a hangnail, he's going to miss a couple of weeks, right? It's going to be the Kristaps Porzingis plan. He stubs his toe. It's going to be MRIs. There's going to be absolutely no doubt about when he comes back. So you lop off maybe even another 16 games and you get yourself down to 50, right? So my first expectation, what can you expect from Paul George, is I think a season that finishes with a number of games played that starts with a 5. I think that's probably the reasonable expectation, right? There's going to be no hint of eligibility for, I don't even know if he would ever be eligible for anything, but the games played thing is going to eliminate any of that anyway. He's going to have limited time.
Yeah.
In that limited time, can we expect a catch and shoot guy? Can we expect some reasonable defense? Can we expect some of the stuff that we saw in that playoff series that helped swing that series and made that a Sixers win? There's really 2 elements from that, or 3. Obviously, Joel Embiid came back and kind of changed a lot of things. We know Derrick White's shooting was horrible, and if he had just shot normally, that series would have been Boston's. But Paul George being just like a knockdown shooter, a very tough, kind of like a tough cover, and a passable defender, a reasonable defender, that alone, we're looking at like Paul George became the Caleb Martin, like that guy, this guy is killing us now. So it shouldn't be a surprise because Paul George has always been very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
And, one of the elite players in the league back in his Indiana days and OKC days and even early Clippers. So it shouldn't be a surprise that he still has that in him. But I guess when we talk about expectations, how much of that does he have in him for 50 whatever games that he's going to play?
Yeah. And to your point, right, I think that to some extent that matters, right? The 50 games matter. I think to a greater extent, like the Celtics want to be competitive this year, right? We've talked a bunch about how what Paul George is what I think he is anyway, is a vehicle to move money and to move draft picks and to move, Hugo Gonzalez and whatever else you got to move to, I said that just to make you mad. Hugo Gonzalez and whoever else it is to move all those guys for a future superstar. But I do think like Celtics want to win this year. And if he can stay healthy, right? If he can be, I think when you talk about his fit, if he can stay healthy for the duration of like a postseason run, I think he could really extend that postseason run. Like, I think that, so I do think to some extent, 50 games, maybe a 4, you said, it starts with a 5, maybe it starts with a 4 and it ends with a high number, right? Maybe it's like a 47 games, whatever it ends up coming down to. I think if he's healthy for the playoff run, and if he looks as, if he fits as well as I think he's going to fit, I do think that he's going to be really helpful. So that to me is I think that he can recapture some of the stuff that he was doing in the playoffs if he's not pushed too hard during the regular season. I think that matters for the Celtics. I think they do want to try to make some level of a push here. You don't want to waste a Jayson Tatum season on waiting for next year. Like,
right.
You can't do that. That's, we talked last time about things that would make Brad Stevens, seat warm up a little bit. I think wasting a Jayson Tatum year would, at least put the seat warmer on, maybe it's not exploding yet, but it's like, ooh, don't love to see that.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's very important to the Celtics that they use Paul George as a way to not waste a Jayson Tatum prime season.
I have a reaction to that, and it goes into that quote that I have there on the screen on the YouTube page. It says, "I'm going to give you all everything," which is something that he said on the video, the Beneath the Banners video. We'll get into that when we come back here on the Locked On Celtics podcast. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Baseball fans, if you think you know who's hitting a homer today, then FanDuel is giving you a free chance to call your shot with daily dingers. It's easy to play. Just make your free pick and for who you think will hit a home run in their game. If you're right, you get a profit boost to use on your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. Best of all, you can make a free pick every day throughout the Major League Baseball season. It's another fun way to stay engaged with every day's games, whether you're following your favorite team or keeping an eye on the matchups across the league. Every game has someone capable of going deep. Now you get the chance to make your prediction and do that before the first pitch. Sometimes a hitter is just hot and hitting home runs like crazy. Sometimes there's a pitcher who tends to give up the long ball, or maybe there's a team playing in a stadium that has a very easy way to send a ball out of the park. So whichever one you want to rely on, you can do it at FanDuel.com. You go there to play daily dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a home run. Make sure you're using the tools that are available. When you sign up, it'll ask you to set a limit, set a budget, whatever you can afford to lose. It's your money to spend however you want it, but gamble responsibly. Do that at FanDuel.com. Play ball and swing for the fences on FanDuel, an official partner of the MLB. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. We are Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Next week, maybe Monday, Wednesday, but a little bit later. Normally we publish on Tuesday night, but we'll publish on Wednesday during the... Whoa, sorry about that. Yes, I always hit that wrong. They look the same, and I hit the wrong button. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you get 3 podcasts a week. That's 3 podcasts a week if you subscribe. I'm John Karalis, stumbling through this part of the podcast, but I do cover the Celtics for Sports Illustrated's Celtics on SI. I've been doing this podcast miraculously, the way I'm talking right now, for 11 years. It feels like I've been talking for 11 years. So, Tom, I will just go into my next point here, where Paul George says, I'm going to give you all everything. So he said all of the things he wants to say that you're supposed to say. Here I am holding up my number 13 jersey that who knows what he paid Ron Harper Jr. for that, but he gets to keep the PG-13 nickname, an elite nickname, in my opinion. And he's excited, right? He's excited to come to town. He's saying all the right things. Playing off of what you were saying before, I think one thing that lends some credence to him playing well in Boston, the Celtics do a good job of letting guys do the things they do well, right? Mm-hmm. It's the Brad Stevens classic line, soar with your strengths. The Celtics don't look at, okay, what can't you do? We're going to avoid those situations of what you can't do. It's what can you do, and how do we put you in the position to do those things that you can do? It is one of the things that they do extraordinarily well, that Brad Stevens and Joe Mazzulla, when you figure out what the players you have are, they are very good at they will be very good at putting Paul George in position to run a pick and roll, which he can do very effectively, to be in a catch and shoot situation, which he can do very effectively. And if he grows into more of a catch and shoot guy and a guy that you can say, hey, listen, Jaylen Brown had problems just standing in a corner and being a floor spacer because he was better than that and he wanted to do more than that. But sometimes the Celtics just needed somebody to be a floor spacer. Paul George is going to be cool being a floor spacer because he's not that much better than that at this age. 10 years ago, he wouldn't have done that. But now this is a great year, a great time in his career, I should say, to be like a Vince Carter and say, hey, listen, I'm going to age gracefully. I'm going to understand what I can do. And so when he says, I'm going to give you everything, you just got to give yourself you got to give the Celtics everything in that very specific way. So this partnership between him and Joe Mazzulla and him and Jayson Tatum, who I think is a very malleable kind of star, not very overbearing, not a LeBron James, not a Luka Doncic, not the type that's going to be like, this is all my franchise. You must do everything to my liking. I think everybody's kind of easygoing in that way, which can help and hurt, but that's another thing. I think the dynamics, if Paul George is going to succeed, the Celtics are one of the teams that can put him in a position to succeed, and whatever he is going to be, whatever the maximum of Paul George is now, he can achieve that in Boston.
Yeah, it's one of the things that makes you feel good about them, like a little off topic here, but it's one of the things that makes you feel really good about paying Mitchell Robinson, right? Like that you're like, yeah, I like what you're going to be able to do here, bud. Like I like all the possibilities here. And it's I think you're right. It's the same thing, right? It's one of the reasons that Isaiah Thomas was an all-star here is because the Celtics just said, you know what, that guy can do some stuff, and let's, like as long as we can ride this train, let's do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I think that's exactly right, and I think to your point, I think there's a lot of stuff that Paul George can still do, and I think it's really important to note that the Celtics are going to have three guys who can handle the ball in a primary way, to the point that he's not going to have to. Right? There's not going to be an expectation on Paul George. No, don't take the ball out of Payton Pritchard's hands. No, just stand over there. Like he'll drive, and then he'll either get a bucket or he'll kick it out. And we want the ball in Payton Pritchard's hands. We know that guy can score 20, 30, 40 points in a game. Like he can do that. Same thing with Derrick White, right? If Pritchard and Tatum are both off the floor, but Derrick White and Paul George are both on the floor, yeah, great. Okay, Derrick White, you handle the ball, you initiate the offense, you run the stuff, and then there's Paul George if you need him. And the nice thing about Paul George is that if you kick him the ball and you bring a Mitchell Robinson up to set a screen, whatever it is, he'll just run that pick and roll. Like then Paul George can run the pick and roll, but he's not the primary guy. And I think, when you talk about, I'm going to give y'all everything, it's like, that's awesome. The thing that we need you to give, right? If I'm Brad Stevens, what I'm saying to Paul George is the thing that we need you to give is like acceptance of your role and acceptance of just the times when we're going to allow you to play and the times when we need you to sit down because you stubbed your toe, right? We like just this real acceptance of like what the Celtics need from him is an acceptance of where he is in his career. And I'm really curious to see how that looks, because I think Jaylen Brown takes so much, took so much heat over the course of his career over like, does he accept his role? And like, I don't know. Like, I think that Jaylen did accept his role because his role was superstar, right? Like his role needed to be superstar. But I don't think the Celtics the Celtics certainly don't need Paul George to be a superstar. So for him to accept his role, it's interesting. I know we're going to get into this in the next segment, but when it's, I'm going to give y'all everything. It's like, okay, cool. We really need you to give us acceptance of where things are at. And I think that he will, because like he's, he seemed fine in Philly, right? It's like, it doesn't, he didn't seem like he was trying to take touches away from Tyrese Maxey. So great. Just do that again. Do that exact thing again. Play like you did in the playoffs, and everything is going to be, quite comfortable in Boston, I think.
I wonder how much Mike Conley being here is going to kind of help that along, because Mike Conley was not the level of player that Paul George was,
right?
But still a high level player. Always, a one-time All-Star, but always kind of like in that mix. And
the classic, we got to get that guy into an All-Star game soon, guys, kind of guy.
Yeah, that guy. Is he good enough this year? Okay, you know what? No,
gotta do it next year for sure.
Yeah.
Russell Westbrook is messing everything up for him.
But having Conley around as a guy that, in that same video where Paul George said I'm going to give you all everything, Brad's talking about Mike Conley saying, and he said this so much about so many guys, accepting who you are at this time, knowing that you're not going to play every minute of every game, and Paul knowing that, listen, you're going to play 50 some odd games. A few of those games are going to be like, you're 95% able to play, but because you're not 100% able to play, you're not playing. And just understand that we're doing that so you can play later when it matters more. And the Celtics have wing depth that hopefully shows itself in Shireman and Gonzalez and Jordan Walsh and Sam Hauser. And those, like, there's wing depth there that can make up for the 30, let's just say 30 games that he misses. If, to your point, if he can accept that and be like, yeah, okay, cool, I'm on board, I got it, because it worked last year. Playing fewer games worked, and like, look at what you were able to do in that playoff series. That's what we want. Like, Joe Mazzulla can sit down for a brunch with Paul George and be like, that first round series, we want that 3 or 4 times from you. And so if you trust us to get you there, we'll trust you to deliver it when you get there. So I think that's going to be the conversation. So that brings us to, does this mean he's going to be a better fit than Jaylen Brown? Which is a loaded, I'm sure, cue the Cope comments. Here we go. But it's a topic that's come up. We're going to talk about it next here on the Locked On Celtics podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Here for you Monday, Wednesday, Friday for August and September. Here for you Monday through Friday is the Locked On NBA podcast. So go check that out next. Here for you Monday through Monday is the Locked On NBA Game Night podcast, which I'm on Wednesdays with Kuka Hill of Locked On Pistons. So you got tons of content covering the NBA as a whole, both on the same feed there on the Locked On NBA feed. So check that out wherever you get your podcasts. All right. So, Tom, the question of, is Paul George a better fit than Jaylen Brown? I think this hinges on a couple of things. Understanding that obviously Jaylen Brown is the better player. Okay.
Yes.
We all know Jaylen Brown is a superstar. I would rather have Jaylen Brown than Paul George. Can we just establish it up front? Okay. We're good. We're all on the same page. Fit doesn't mean better. Fit means also mentally. We just talked about accepting your role. Jaylen, coming off of the year that he had, not getting the extension from the Celtics. Celtics were not going to extend him at max money. Having Paul George here, instead of, unclear what Jaylen Brown's mentality was going to be at that point, the Celtics thinking, hey, we're going to move on from that. There's a little bit of that element there. And on top of that, and I'll throw it over to you after this, is the guy that is not going to be worried about, hey, yes, I will stand in the corner. Paul George does not turn the ball over quite as much as Jaylen. Like, Jaylen Brown, for all of his great things, is turnover prone and is not the shooter that he's just not a great 3-point shooter. Jaylen Brown's career 3-point shooting is 35.8%. He shot 34.7% last year, 32.4% the year before. League average is over 36. So he is, in all measures, a below average 3-point shooter. In 3 of his 10 seasons did he shoot above league average. 7 of his 10 seasons, he shot below league average from 3. He's not a 3-point shooter or he's not a good 3-point shooter. He can get hot. Paul George is a good 3-point shooter. Last year, he shot 39%. The year before it was right at 35.8, but then 41.3. His career average is 38.4, above average. He's a good or at least above average 3-point shooter. So he doesn't turn the ball over much or as much, and he shoots better. So considering all of the elements of second apron and you got to, whatever, and this is a gap, whatever, another gap year part 2, there is an argument to be made that in some situations, having Paul George on the floor will work well. And because Jaylen Brown is kind of almost too good and may want to do too much, maybe the step back is what helps the Celtics kind of play a better tempo. I want to say faster. I want them to get up and down a little bit more. Just don't want them to be last in pace, be like 25th in pace, maybe.
Sure.
But more than that, play with a better half-court tempo because Jayson Tatum is a slow player. And because Jaylen and Jayson were slow ISO players, taking one of those ISO guys out could help the tempo overall with a few more cuts and a few more guys spacing and all of that stuff. All right. It's a lot of talking. Tom, your turn.
Yeah.
In classic Jaylen Jayson fashion, it's my turn, your turn.
That's right. That's right. Well, let me just make roughly all the same points you did, just rephrased slightly differently.
Sure.
And also classic Jaylen Jayson fashion. But genuinely, though, I think that is one of the arguments for this trade, right? Like for this, they're in favor of Paul George being potentially a better fit than Jaylen. Again, I echo you, right? Jaylen is obviously much, much better than Paul George. But I do think that there is the chance that what the Celtics have, the cohesion matters, right? Fit matters, depth matters, all that stuff matters. I think the Celtics are a deeper team this year. I think that there is a chance that because they don't have, because they don't have two guys who are so similar in how they play when they're at their best, that the fit is better. I do think that's potentially true. Again, we don't know that might not be the case, but I think that what we can say is that Brad Stevens seems to have decided two things, right? One, it was time to move on from Jaylen from a money perspective. It was, it's got the second apron is looming large, 70% of the cap, all that stuff that he said, all that stuff is 100% a concern for him, right? And I think he's also kind of, saying all right, it's time to, some of these other teams are really good. It is time to take a look at what, I think Brad Stevens has taken the guess that it's this Jaylen Jayson thing has gone as far as we think it can in terms of championships. And I mean, maybe, right? Like that I do think that is a possibility. And that if you accept that as a premise, the idea of Paul George in place of Jaylen makes a lot of sense, right? The idea of a guy who is willing to because Jaylen never should have taken a step back from Jayson, right? That was, and that was the point. The Jaylen needed to be himself, which was a superstar. But now it might be time to give Jayson that chance to have, instead of a Batman to his Batman, having an actual Robin to his Batman, right? No, this guy is in the pecking order. You're no longer 1A, 1B. You are 1. And then there is a 2, and then there is a 3, and there is a 4. And maybe that cohesion matters, right? Maybe that cohesion makes things a little simpler. And maybe the depth that the Celtics now have makes things a little bit better. I think it's potentially, I think there is the potential that Paul George will look like a better fit this year. If that happens, I do think it's important for Celtics fans to remember that in the year of our Lord 2024, the Boston Celtics won a championship. So that wasn't always the case. The Celtics won a title with Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and that is like the ultimate level of cohesion. Even if it wasn't perfect at all times, if you win a title, nobody can say anything about fit, about anybody accepting their role, yada yada. All that, like, if you won a title, everything went perfectly for you that year. And there's, like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear any complaints. So I think that needs to be said. But if you kind of accept the idea that, like, the Jaylen Jayson thing was coming to an end, the salary cap, the second apron was about to make everything prohibitive, taking a shot on a guy who gives Jayson that clear line of delineation of, like, nope. You are our guy. Go out there and win us as many games as you can, as many playoff series as you can. Here's a guy who's here to help you, not a guy who's here, not another superstar. Just here's a helper. It's an interesting concept. I'm interested to see it.
I just like everything, we're talking a very like narrow band, but just like everything in basketball, it depends on everybody else. I think
that's right.
If we finish this season saying that, Paul George actually fit a little bit better than 2026, 27 Jaylen Brown. Like, I think that's going to be the important thing. Right. Like to build on your point, Jaylen Brown, everything, like the Celtics made a decision that everything that worked before this upcoming season, every season is different. Things change, and they're like, this is changing. And so this no longer fits. So if Paul George is going to do all of the things that we're sitting here saying that are potentially there, it's going to be like, it's because Derrick White had a good shooting season. And also because Payton Pritchard was able to do a lot of the things that he did last year. And it's also because Baylor Shireman and Hugo Gonzalez and Jordan Walsh, or some combination of those guys, did well. And also because Mitchell Robinson and Nemish Queta, all of that stuff, like Paul George is going to fit a specific little role. Everyone else has to do their part too. And if he fits in all of that other stuff, then we can, again, take the big picture and focus that spotlight on him and be like, well, this was actually pretty good, much better than we expected. Like when I did my reaction video in the immediate aftermath of the trade, going like, that's all? It's so you want to turn around and be like, actually, that worked out better than we thought. And so it is going to depend on a little bit of everybody else. So
for sure.
All right, we'll see. It's a long season coming up, so we'll see what Paul George can do. All right, Tom, thanks for hopping on, buddy. Appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you, man.
And I do appreciate you, all of you listening, watching, getting into the comment section, sharing your thoughts with me. I understand that a lot of you are going to be like, you're smoking a whole lot of copium right now. Gotcha. I hear you. I understand this is part of the pot. Look, we're exploring possibilities here, and this is one of them. So, but share your thoughts. Let me know. And would love it also if you share the podcast and spread the word that everybody should be listening to and watching the Lockdown Celtics podcast here on the Lockdown Podcast Network. It's your team every day.